Exposed. The sinister truth behind the haunted girl next door. Discover the unexplained horror. It started with the whispers. They trailed through the quiet streets of Maplewood like a chilling breeze. Sarah, a single mother of two, could sense the unease rustling behind the neatly trimmed hedges and white picket fences. Watching from her porch after another grueling shift at the diner, the shadowy outline of Emily's house next door felt wrong, like a storm waiting to unleash its fury. On the first day Emily moved in, her dark eyes seemed to see right through Sarah's soul. "Can I play with Liam and Mia?" she asked, her voice a haunting whisper. Sarah's heart raced, a gut feeling warning her of danger, but the polite veneer of suburbia pushed her to say yes. She needed friends for her kids, a distraction from the long nights and constant worry about bills. Days turned into restless nights. Each time Sarah pulled into the driveway after work, she felt the air thickening, the shadows stretching longer. The Johnsons' dog vanished without a trace, and someone swore they saw glimmers of light in Emily's window, colors that shouldn't exist, lights that danced like fireflies but flickered with dread. The aroma of summer barbecues couldn't mask the sour scent of fear creeping in. "Liam, Mia, who are you playing with?" Sarah asked one evening, noticing their hushed giggles. They spoke of mysterious games and imaginary friends. A chill rolled down her spine. This sweet neighborhood had become unsettling. She leaned into her unease, trying to push past it. "Just focus on your kids," she told herself, her heart drumming in her chest. Then, the whispers started at night, soft, eerie sounds that slipped through her bedroom walls. Sarah, they called her name, chilling her to the bone. Dread dripped into her heart as she peered outside. There, in the dim glow of moonlight, flickers of light danced in Emily's backyard. A shiver ran down her spine. What kind of games were her children playing with that girl? Something was deeply wrong. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, a cold sweat covered Sarah as she realized her children were supposed to be in bed, but they weren't. The stillness of the house had turned deadly quiet, and her heart pounded louder than her fear. Outside, the cold wind howled. She rushed to the door, threw it open, and saw them huddled around Emily, a glow illuminating their innocent faces. "Mommy, she's teaching us something new." Mia giggled, but Sarah couldn't shake the unease twisting in her gut. Liam's eyes, usually so bright, reflected something darker. Emily smiled, her lips curling with an unnerving twist. In that moment, Sarah knew she had to protect her children. Suddenly, she felt outnumbered, abandoned in her own home. Was it just a game, or something more sinister? The flickering lights in Emily's window flashed in rapid clarification, echoing through the still air. The piece of her world began to unravel. Deep down, she sensed the darkness that shrouded her neighborhood had found its way to her family. With a determined heart, she stepped forward, ready to fight the shadows creeping into her life. But would it be enough? The safety she'd worked so hard to build now felt like a crumbling house of cards, teetering on the brink of total collapse. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as she took a step forward, the ground beneath her feeling unsteady. "Liam, Mia, come inside," she commanded, her voice trembling yet resolute. The shadows of her children loomed tall under the flickering glow, and she felt the air shift, thick as fog. The night suddenly felt alive, pushing back against the warmth of her home. "Mommy, we're just playing," Mia protested, her small voice sounding too cheerful, far too innocent for this moment. Emily's smile widened, an unsettling grin that deepened the unease pooling in Sarah's gut. Every instinct screamed at her to pull her kids away from that child. Every nerve hummed with danger as she reached out, snatching Mia's hand. "No, you don't understand. It's time to come inside," Sarah urged, feeling panic claw at her insides. As she tugged at her daughter's arm, Emily stepped forward. "But we're having so much fun," she cooed, her eyes glinting in a way that made Sarah's skin prickle. "I'm teaching them things that would make you proud." "Proud?" How could anything coming from you make me proud? The words left Sarah's mouth before she could stop them, but the moment they were spoken, she regretted it. That smile vanished from Emily's face, replaced by something colder, more predatory. Then you don't understand at all, Emily said softly, each word laced with a sinister power. A gust of wind howled through the yard, sending shivers down Sarah's spine. Suddenly, dark shadows flickered in the corner of her eye, flitting just outside the edges of her vision. Then Liam spoke. It's okay, Mom. Emily said we can learn to play forever like in the stories. He sounded entranced, as if slipping away from her grasp, and it twisted something deep inside Sarah. What stories? What hold did this girl have over her children? Stories? Sarah whispered, dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. What stories, Liam? Emily's laughter chimed like glass shattering. The best kind, of course. The ones that never end. Without waiting for Sarah's next move, the creeping shadows began to morph, twisting into grotesque shapes that sent icy bolts of terror racing through her heart. The glow around Emily intensified, turning the yard into a surreal display of colors tinged with darkness. For a brief moment, Sarah's vision blurred, overwhelmed by the horror of the scene. Let us go now, she barked, yanking both kids toward the house. The flickering lights dimmed as they retreated, but Emily's voice sang out, wrapping around Sarah like a chain. You can't keep them forever, Sarah. They belong with me now inside. Sarah slammed the door behind her, panting as she leaned against it. The silence that followed was deafening, but the weight of dread clung to her like an unwelcome shadow. She turned to her kids, who stared back wide-eyed, oblivious to the darkness that swirled just outside. Why didn't you listen to me? She asked, her voice tight. Meanwhile, dread crawled up her spine. The house felt less like a sanctuary and more like a trap. Then they heard it, a soft tapping on the window. Sarah's heart raced as a chill gripped her. She turned, dread pooling once more at the sight of Emily standing just outside, her dark eyes flickering with an unnatural light. A question lingered heavy in the air. What did she want? What kind of game had she invited Liam and Mia into? Mommy, Liam began, moving toward the window, the call of that sinister presence echoing within him. Don't, Sarah shouted, her voice cracking, grasping his arm tightly before the darkness could steal him away. But before she could pull him back completely, Emily spoke, her voice dripping with sweetness. You can't protect them forever, Sarah. The shadows gathered once more as Sarah realized this was only the beginning. What would happen when the game escalated? Would she lose her children to Emily's world of darkness? The tapping grew louder, a steady rhythm that sent waves of panic through Sarah's chest. It was as if Emily was keeping time with an unseen clock, counting down to something dreadful. Sweat clung to Sarah's palms, and she tightened her grip on Liam's arm, desperate to anchor him back to reality. Mommy, I want to see her, Mia whined, her voice laced with the eagerness that sickened Sarah. Her daughter's eyes were wide, glassy, transfixed by the figure outside. It was as though Emily had cast a spell over them, weaving dark enchantments that pulled at their very essence. No, Mia, listen to me. Sarah's voice rose, sharp and pleading. Every muscle in her body screamed for action, but fear paralyzed her thoughts. Outside, Emily's smile seemed to stretch impossibly wide, her features flickering like the lights above. Shadows danced behind her, shapes undulating and weaving in a malicious ballet that threatened to swallow everything. Liam, oblivious, took a tentative step closer to the window. But she has so much fun, Mommy. We can have adventures. His voice dripped with longing, and dread twisted like a knife in Sarah's gut. Adventures? What kind of adventures could a girl like Emily offer him? Liam, you don't know what you're saying. Stop, Sarah yelled, mustering all the strength she had left. She pulled him back, feeling the weight of his small body resist her, drawn toward the darkness outside. Emily told us about the games, the ones we can play forever. He bounced on his feet, the shimmer in his eyes reflecting the thin thread of darkness that began to creep into their warm home. Games? Sarah asked, desperation clawing at her throat. What games? Murmurs of laughter came from outside, and in an instant, the sound transformed into echoing whispers. Ruthless voices, too many to count, swirled around her like a feral wind. Each word sent chills racing down her spine. The shadows behind Emily began to move again, stretching and reaching as if trying to slip through the cracks of her familiar world. Mommy Mia's voice was soft like a lullaby, but wrapped in an unsettling cord of darkness. "Will you let us go play? Just for a little while?" "Never," Sarah shouted, feeling the tendrils of fear weave tighter around her in the dim light. She faced Mia head-on, desperate for that innocence to flicker back in her daughter's eyes. "You must trust me. We have to stay together, please." But just then, a loud thud rumbled against the door, rattling the frame. Sarah's heart stopped. The walls felt like they were closing in, heavy with the pressure of her dread. She turned towards the sound, fear screaming in her ears. Liam and Mia crouched low, covering their ears, but Emily's voice cut through the noise, sharp and inviting. "You can't stop it, Sarah. You can't keep them safe from what is already inside." Before she could comprehend what was happening, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness. An enveloping silence stretched, broken only by the echo of Emily's laughter spilling in through the cracks of their home. Desperate, Sarah fumbled for the flashlight, breathing fast and shallow. But the beam revealed something worse: figures flickering in the shadows, indistinct but undeniably there, moving closer. Were they real? Or was it the effect of her deteriorating mind? "Mia, Liam," she cried out, panic rising in her throat. The flashlight beam swept across the room, landing on her children, eyes wide, faces racked with fear. With a sickening realization, she understood this was not merely a game. It had escalated beyond that. Emily and her shadows were in control, and it was only a matter of time before they took what they wanted. "Don't let go of my hand," Sarah shouted, trying to gather her children close, but she felt them squirm and pull away. Just outside, the tapping began again, more insistent this time, a drumroll of horror. The door creaked under pressure. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. For who or what was waiting on the other side? What would happen when the door finally gave way? Would they be drawn into the darkness they so foolishly played with? The shadows thickened, coiling around the corners of the room like living tendrils, and Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs. She felt the weight of her children's fear pressing down on her. "We have to move," she yelled, forcing herself to stay calm. But where would she take them? The darkness was closing in, and each tap on the door echoed with growing impatience, like a predator circling its prey. "Mia, Liam, follow me." But her voice trembled, revealing the cracks in her resolve. She rushed toward the back door, hoping it would lead them to safety. The tapping transformed into scratching, a malicious fingernail clawing against their sanctuary. Moments felt like hours as she glanced back to see Emily's figure still lurking beyond the window, her eyes glinting like sharp shards of glass. Liam's grip loosened as he caught sight of the shadowy figures flanking Emily, their forms twisting unnaturally. "Mommy," his trembling voice broke her heart. "I'm scared. Stay with me. I promise I won't let anything hurt you." The frantic energy pulsing through her veins screamed for action. They needed to escape. She realized the shadows were more than just figures. They seemed to be extensions of Emily's malevolence, feeding off the confusion and fear that churned in her children's hearts. Sarah yanked the back door open just as a sharp crack filled the air. The front door splintered with a ferocious bang. She barely turned her head before a surge of icy wind surged into the house, a howling wail that stole the breath from her lungs. "Run," she shouted, shoving her children through the doorway and into the night. The grass felt sodden underfoot, like a trap waiting to pull them down. The darkness enveloped them, moonlight barely piercing through the storm clouds swirling above. "Mama, I can't see anything," Mia cried, her small voice drowned beneath the hold of evening's shadow. "Stick close. Just trust me," Sarah shouted, desperation shooting through her veins like fire. They stumbled across the yard, terror driving them faster. But as they reached the edge of the yard, she felt the piercing gaze of Emily's laughter echoing behind them, rejoicing in their fear. "Where do we go?" Liam whimpered, looking back nervously. The chill of anxiety gnawed at Sarah's insides, her mind racing, desperately weighing options. "Over the fence." She pointed to a dilapidated wooden structure warped with age, but it stood foreboding, almost mocking them. Could they make it? Would they be pursued? A terrible screech shattered the air, a sound that sent every hair on her body standing straight. The shadows surged, an unsettling mass shifting behind them, eager to swallow them whole. The laughter grew louder, raucous, and maddening. Without thinking, Sarah grabbed Liam's hand and hoisted Mia up under her arm, sprinting towards the fence. She reached the base, her frantic breaths mingling with the tempest brewing around them. "Climb, climb," she urged, pushing Liam upward. "Mia, hold on tight." Just as they reached the top, the ground beneath them trembled. The laughter twisted and contorted, shifting to something darker. "You can't escape it," taunted, an echo that burrowed into the marrow of her bones. With one last push, Sarah sent Mia over the fence and scrambled to follow, a sudden inexplicable weight pulling at her leg. The moment she fell forward, glancing back, she saw them eyes glowing with malevolence just as an icy hand gripped her ankle. "Let go," she screamed, trying to pull away as grotesque figures swarmed around her, writhing with malicious intent. The last thing she saw was Emily's smiling face looming behind them, her laughter swallowing the night. In that fleeting moment, Sarah wondered if this was truly the end. What cruel fate awaited her and her children? A distant light flickered in the darkness, sparking a thread of hope. Could it be a way out? Or was it another cruel trick, drawing her towards a fate worse than she could imagine? With a fierce determination, she fought against the grasp of despair, knowing they had to move fast. But as they clung together, she was haunted by one nagging thought. What had they awakened? The night pressed in hard around them, a suffocating blanket of anxiety wrapping tightly against their skin. Sarah pulled with all her strength, fighting the unnatural grasp of the shadowed figures clawing at her. Each tug echoed an ominous reminder that the darkness was alive, hungering for her and her children. "Mama, help!" Liam's voice pierced through the cacophony of laughter and screeches, each wail a twisted mockery of innocence. Sarah's heart shattered at the sound. Gripping the fence with one hand, she managed to twist her body, yanking her leg free. The moment she broke loose, the shadows recoiled momentarily, as if stung. "Go, now," Sarah barked, pushing Mia and Liam ahead, lost in a blur of terror and instinct. They scrambled over the fence, adrenaline propelling them forward. The thud of their feet against the earth melded with the despairing cries that echoed behind them. But in the new clearing, the oppressive weight of the darkness still loomed, hovering like a storm cloud. Sarah took a moment to catch her breath, her chest heaving, the raw panic resonating within her. She glanced back, dread pooling in her stomach when the shadows surged over the fence. The light she glimpsed through the swirling fog of darkness shimmered ahead. It flickered like a beacon but felt too inviting, almost too good to be true. "We have to run," she urged, biting back the surge of fear that tightened her throat. Liam clutched at her hand. "What if it's a trap? Do you want to find out?" She snapped, fear igniting her urgency. "We don't have a choice." With every step, the edge of hope drew closer, illuminating a path, perhaps their only chance. The shadows snarled behind them, a phantasmagorical wave that roared with frustration. As they bolted toward the light, something shifted in the air. A low rumble vibrated along the ground, the earth shuddering beneath them. Sarah could feel an unsettling warmth radiating from the light, teasing her with the promise of safety, but uncertainty gripped her heart. Was it real, or was it another deception conjured by something sinister? "Mama, what if I know?" she interrupted, forcing a smile despite her racing pulse. "But we have to keep going." Though her heart was a drumbeat of dread, she couldn't afford to let her children sense her fear. They were her only tether to sanity now. Yet as they approached, shadows twisted and contorted, a creeping fog that reached out like gnarled fingers, beckoning them to stay. The laughter morphed again, more sinister, blending with whispers that floated through the cold night air, wrapping around their thoughts like vine tendrils. With each step, the walls of safety began to close in, the light flickering like a candle desperate against the winds of an early storm. Emily's voice surfaced again, young and sweet, cut through the chaos. "Come home, come play with me." Sarah felt a visceral chill, the edge of reality blinking out as the shadows grew nearer. "No," she shouted, pushing her children on. Just as she thought they had broken free, a solid darkness pulled at her, rooted her to the spot. "Mama!" Liam's scream sent piercing alarm through her. Just a few feet ahead, the flickering light dimmed, revealing a fork in the path. "Which way?" Mia's eyes widened in fear. The shadows danced, morphing at the edge of her vision, each side whispering promises of refuge and betrayal. To the right, Sarah yelled, choking on her decision, every fiber screaming for them to move before it was too late. But just as they made the turn, they stumbled upon a clearing, the ground littered with remnants of lives long forgotten. Broken toys, rusted bicycle wheels, tattered clothes. The wind carried the stench of misery, wrapping around them like a shroud. Sarah froze, the sinister realization crashing over her. Whatever had taken hold of Emily had left its mark here, staining everything it touched. This place, it feels wrong, Sarah breathed, her stomach churning to as they stood there. Something in the dark shifted behind them. The laughter began again, mocking and eager, reaching out to claim them as the figures converged silently from all sides. The despair sank into her bones. Was this where it ended? The light flickered ominously, and all that remained was the terrifying question that hung in the air: what had truly been unleashed in pursuit of her children? And as the darkness crept closer, they could only hope they wouldn't become part of this place forever. The laughter echoed, a cacophony that slithered through the clearing. It snaked into Sarah's ears, wrapping around her thoughts and squeezing tight. She turned to see the shadows flowing like smoke, merging and breaking apart with malicious intent. Each animated figure twisted into a grotesque parody of life, faces she barely recognized flitting in and out of the darkness. "Mama!" Mia cried, her grip tightening on Sarah's hand. The warmth of her daughter's small palm felt like a lifeline threatening to slip away. They needed to move, but where? "Stay close," Sarah shouted, panic surging through her veins like ice. Fear pierced her gut as they seemed to materialize out of nowhere, surrounded by those haunting figures, eyes like burning coals in the dark. She pushed against the tide of shadows, urging her children to follow. "We can't stay here," she screamed, her voice barely slicing through the oppressive gloom. But the whispers grew louder, angrier, each word a promise of suffering and despair. "You can't escape." "Mommy, I'm scared," Liam stuttered, tears glistening in his wide eyes. "Me too," Sarah admitted, the truth raw and unguarded. She could feel the weight of the darkness pressing against her, suffocating. Inside, her heart raced. This fear was a palpable thing, almost tangible, wrapping around them like a noose. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if responding to her admission. Sarah could breathe for just a second longer. Maybe vulnerability had a strange power over those things. Gathering her courage, she turned and faced her children. "We have to stick together. Always," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The ground shifted beneath them, the remnants of lost lives crunching underfoot. At the edge of the clearing, the light pulsed, vibrant and warm, flickering like a heartbeat offering life against the shadow. "We have to get to that light." With a determined push, she tangled her fingers in their small hands, not daring to look back. They sprinted toward the light, feet pounding hard against the earth that cradled lost hopes and dreams. Each thud of their feet felt like a countdown, one more step closer to salvation or doom. Just as they reached the boundary where darkness melted away, something lunged from behind them, the shadows coiling like serpents, teeth bared. The children screamed as one, a ghost of terror erupting into the night. "Mama!" Liam shouted, his voice a plea woven into the very fabric of her heart. Without thinking, Sarah flung herself toward the glowing edge, but they stumbled in the dark mud, slipping back. The light flickered erratically, dimming, threatening to snuff out completely. "No," she gasped, anxiety threatening to choke her breath. At that moment, the air around them thickened, heavy with the weight of despair. From the shadows, a figure lurked close, its outline shifting like the darkness surrounding it. A face broke through the haze. Not just a shadow, but Emily's. "Help us, Mama!" The words dripped with terror that tinged the air with desperation. "Emily!" Sarah screamed, scrambling back toward the phantom of her daughter, but a force pulled her down. It was a blackness that felt alive, a whisper of stolen innocence that clawed at her very essence. "Mama, please!" Mia's cries echoed in the swirling chaos, sharp and piercing, a cry of a child trapped in a nightmare. The shadows lunged toward her, and Sarah felt her resolve start to crack. Could she stand against such a horror? They needed to fight back, but how? Just when despair seemed absolute, the lead figure paused, tilting its head. Sarah felt the frigid air shift with a strange energy. It felt like recognition, an unsettling possibility. Did they know something? Did they want something? Tell us. Why are you doing this? She shouted into the abyss. But all she heard was the chilling laughter again, louder and mixed with wails that twisted her stomach. As the darkness coiled around them, it became impossible to distinguish between reality and the nightmares being woven around her. A horrible thought clawed at her. What if the true horror wasn't outside but within? In that moment of stark realization, the light flickered again, brighter this time. Was it hope? Or was it a trap? With the darkness edging closer, they were standing at the brink. What would they have to sacrifice, and would they still be whole if they chose to cross that line? Sarah's mind raced as she felt the shadows tightening, and just before everything went black, she caught a glimpse of what lay ahead, hope torn apart at the seams. Hold on, she screamed. But as the shadows whispered and the light burnished, there lingered a haunting echo. What have you brought us? And with that chilling question reverberating in her mind, she braced for the unknown ahead. The world was a maelstrom. Silence clashed with shrieks as Sarah felt the suffocating grip of the dark shadows around her. It was cold now. Too cold. The warmth of her children's hands began to feel like an illusion slipping from her grasp. Mama. Mia's voice quivered, but it rang hollow in Sarah's ears, filled with dread. She could hardly think or breathe, but she had to act. Get to the light. She shouted again, her voice bleeding urgency. They were dangerously close, but the shadows were a wall of teeth and darkness, shuddering with a terrible appetite. With a surge of desperation, Sarah yanked her children, dragging them forward. Each step felt like wading through thick sludge, the ground clinging to them, like grasping fingers intent on pulling them under. Just as they broke through the edges of the clearing, a dozen eyes bore down on her, fiery and unyielding. The lead figure flew toward them, an aspect touched with sin, twisting and stretching like some appalling nightmare. A flash of malice tore through the air. Emily, the shadow called, a voice like shards of glass, spreading dread. Sarah's heart lurched. Had Emily come back to them, only to join this horror? She looked back, and for a fleeting second, she thought she could see her daughter not as the figure lost in shadows, but smiling vibrantly awake. No. The brightness dimmed again, each heartbeat a countdown to darkness. The shadows seemed to groan and hiss, a chorus of souls lost and pleading. They reached for Mia and Liam, needles of cold threatening to pierce their fragile hope. Mama, I can't, Liam cried, his breath hitching. Don't say that. We can make it, Sarah shouted, her voice cracking under the weight of panic. But as the darkness clawed at their ankles, it felt like their reality was tearing apart, a fraying thread ready to unravel. The faces in the shadows twisted into something grotesque, but so achingly familiar, each one a stitch in a tapestry of terror. They were relics of the past, people Sarah had loved, mingled into this nightmare. Join us, Sarah, a voice rippled from the abyss. No, get away, she screamed, yanking her children closer. Just as they began to slip further into the dark, the light ignited again, larger and brighter. Sarah felt a tug, as if the glow was alive, reaching into her very soul. Come this way. The shadows hesitated, recoiling from the brightness as though it burned them. It was an opening, a chance. Gathering her fragmented courage, she sprinted towards the light, dragging her children behind her, refusing to look back at the horrors that called her name. Then, as abruptly as they began to escape, the light flickered, a stark reminder of the choice they faced. What had they brought with them? The question gnawed at her. Mommy, what do we do? Mia whined, fear radiating off her like heat. Trust me, Sarah yelled, pouring everything into her voice, threading resilience through it like armor. But doubt surfaced like an oil slick, and as shadows danced at the corners of her vision, a waxing fear threatened to swallow her whole. Would they make it, and what would they leave behind? As they broke through into the blinding light, Sarah was momentarily blinded. She shielded her eyes, allowing faith to guide her feet. But around them, the shadows shivered and screamed, a chaotic storm of rage and hunger. Then, through the blinding brightness, she heard it again, the dreadful whisper, "What have you brought us?" Fear collided with something deeper, a sense of foreboding, yet unexplored. It wasn't heat, just terror. It was a truth hidden within the very fabric of her being. With the darkness closing in again, the question lingered, vibrating. What would she truly have to sacrifice to keep her children safe? As the shadows clawed closer, the light began to fracture, and Sarah felt time bending around them as she tightened her grip on her children's hands. The answer lay ahead, and it was coming for them. What would they face when the light finally shattered? The light flickered around Sarah, sending shards of brilliance that left afterimages on her retina. Each pulse felt both like hope and like a warning, a harbinger of something undeniably dreadful lurking just beyond her grasp. Don't look back, she forced herself as the shadows writhed, hungry and desperate. The whispers escalated to a maddening cacophony, weaving through the cacophony of her thoughts, twisting her resolve. What have you brought us, Sarah? The voice breathed, lilting with a sinister seduction that sank deep into her marrow. Keep going, she shouted, fear threading through every syllable. The children's hands felt smaller than ever, their warmth nearly ghostly. Each step into the light was a prayer for safety, a pitiful offering against the onslaught. But for every inch they gained, shadows snatched at her heels, a slithering tide of despair. A dreamlike heaviness hung in the air, thickening around them like the fog. Mama! Mia cried, her voice carrying the rawness of terror. Sarah glanced to her daughter, and in that fleeting moment, she saw a rage flare in the depths of the characters forming on the edges of the light. Faces twisted in torment, as if they had just emerged from the cemetery, their fingers stretched out, beckoning for companionship in their hellish embrace. Stay close, Sarah barked, ripping through her rising panic. She could feel their breath, cold and clammy, like frost creeping on her skin. The story she told them about the dark didn't do justice to the dread enveloping them now. A sudden blast of darkness slammed into her, knocking her off balance. The ground seemed to spiral beneath her feet as she stumbled. The light trembled as shadows clawed at the edges, trying to bridge the gap. No, she cried out, fighting back against the despair. Don't let go. She had to control the unraveling fear, the ripping sensation that threatened to tear them apart. Mama, I can't. Liam sobbed, tears streaking his cheeks. You can, Liam. Hold my hand. The desperation leaped in her voice. It was a command, a plea, a prayer barricaded behind the grip of terror that coursed through her heart. The shadows responded, a low hum building, alternating between whispers of lost loved ones and screeching screams of betrayal. Their faces were, had she seen them? Familiar waves of grief washed over her. The dark was unearthing memories long buried, forcing her to confront them with torment, to recognize the price for their survival. Join us. The collective hiss sent ice through her veins. For an instant, she hesitated. Was it Emily that growled from the abyss? Or was it the guilt she buried so deep she could hardly recall the shape? Stop! She howled at the encroaching darkness, teeth clenched, ready to fight. Shadows recoiled, surprised by her defiance. As she pushed forward, pulling Mia and Liam, she could feel time unraveling. The gap narrowed, trapping them in a moment pregnant with possibility, both salvation and doom. Will we ever see the light again? Liam whispered, trembling. Yes, we will. She wasn't sure, but she had to sound certain. Suddenly, the ground shifted again, the light splintering around them. Something emerged, tendrils of darkness reached for them. Sarah's heart raced, her grip tightening as she pushed with all her strength, adrenaline coursing through her. And then, before they could react, the light collapsed entirely, plunging them into a darkness thicker than before. A dreadful stillness consumed them, and the last thing she felt was the slipping warmth of her children's hands. What will you offer for your children, Sarah? The voice echoed into the void, a taunting whisper that sent shivers down her spine. Panic took hold. There was no escape as she gripped nothing but shadow. The stakes suddenly seemed far higher than mere survival. It wasn't just their journey now, but a descent into her own soul, a sacrifice that demanded to be made. And as the darkness tightened, she realized the truth was consuming her, ready to spit her and her family out into a new kind of horror. But where, and at what cost? What would she have to confront in this abyss to reclaim her children? The silence swallowed them, wrapping tight around Sarah like a vice, squeezing any flicker of hope. Heart pounding, she could hardly focus. All she could hear was the terrifying echo of that voice, now whispering to her like an old friend. What will you offer? The darkness pressed against her, heavy and suffocating, as if it were a living thing, breathing down her neck. Panic clawed at her throat. "What do you want?" "I'll do anything," she cried out, her voice reverberating in the hollow space. But the shadows only caressed her skin, flickering with thoughts and memories she had fought long and hard to forget. The weight of her past crept back with malicious intent, voices from childhood, failures as a mother, and lost loved ones she couldn't save. Faces swirled, darkened caricatures twisted in grief and anger. "Join us," they murmured. "Join us, Sarah." "Mama." Mia's voice cut through the darkness like a candle flame, fragile yet burning bright. Sarah spun around, reaching for that tender voice as dread tightened its grip on her heart. "I'm here. I'm here," she shouted, desperate to find her children in the thick fog of despair. Looking frantically through the suffocating dark, she could feel the children's presence nearby. Their warmth was an anchor, but it felt fleeting, pulled away by the greedy shadows. "Hold on to each other," Sarah commanded, trying to sound stronger than she felt. "We can't lose each other." But the air grew thick with malevolence. Each breath tasted of ash and betrayal, and it dredged up the crying faces demanding answers she didn't have. Her heart hammered in rhythm with their whispers, each pulse echoing demands for sacrifice. "Sacrifice her? It's only fair," the darkness hissed, teasing her with the possibility of betrayal. "No." She ripped through the shroud of despair, forcing herself forward. "I will not. I won't let you take them." Cold tendrils snaked around her ankles, binding her in place as the shadows surged, feeding on her fear. Her memories of love twisted grotesquely, taunting her with the choices she had made. "You let them down," they hissed. "Isn't that why you're here?" Fury surged through her, a righteous flame against the consuming chill. "Get away from us," she roared, pulling herself free of the shadowy grip momentarily. A bitter laughter echoed back. "What will you sacrifice? Who will you give us?" In that moment, a flicker of resolve ignited. The shadows thrived on despair, but despair was not the only gift she had to offer. "I won't sacrifice them," she spat, fists clenched. "But I'll face my sins. Whatever I have to do. Just let them go." The shadows recoiled, their laughter replaced with a sinister growl that vibrated through the air. "Face your darkness, then, and let us see how deep it runs." As she stood determined, the air shivered. The darkness began to shift, forming shapes lurking just out of reach, stagnant but alive, twining closer as they began to whisper her name. "Sarah, Sarah." "Enough," she yelled, forcing herself forward, calling back the light that had abandoned them. "You don't own me. You don't own my family." But with each step, doubt crept in, twisting around her mind. Was it truly courage, or was she merely grasping at shadows? Suddenly, a blinding light pulsed from the void ahead. It was a beacon, an anchor. Yet, the faces of her children flickered like a mirage. "Sarah?" Mia's voice trembled in the distance. "Stay together." She thrust her arm forward, the light shimmering beyond a curtain of darkness, just out of reach as the shadows writhed like snakes around her feet. "Come to us, come join," and as the shadows twisted in on themselves, she could feel the walls of her own reality crumbling. Would she truly confront her past, with the chilling revelation that her children could also be a part of that darkness? As the light pulsed again, she knew her greatest battle was yet to begin, facing whatever lurked beneath her own skin. Would the truth save them, or destroy them all? The shadows shrieked and moaned, the air thick with an unspeakable tension that clung to Sarah like a wet blanket. Her breath came quick, sharp gasps as panic surged anew. "We can't give in," she shouted, her voice stronger than she felt, a lifeline not just for her children, but for herself. "Hold my hand," she cried, finding Mia's feeble grip in the darkness, anchoring herself in that small moment of warmth. Liam echoed her call, reaching out to reclaim what was all but fading under the weight of despair. The two children formed a fragile circle of hope as the echoes of laughter swirled around them, haunting, mocking. With every ounce of determination, Sarah edged closer to that pulsing light in the void. "You'll never have them," she bellowed, feeling the terror roll off the shadows, the dread radiating through her as if the dark sought to swallow her whole. For every inch they gained towards salvation, the shadows pulsed back, hissing words steeped in venomous temptation. "Join us." They crooned, a chorus of malice that twisted at the fabric of her heart. Never. They're mine. Sarah's voice trembled as she fought against the encroaching fog, all while realizing the weight of her sacrifices lay not only in facing enemies, but in confronting the truth of what she had done, the choices that had led them here. Sarah, your fears draw near, a soothing voice echoed, its tone so familiar yet foreign, weaving through the twilight like a siren call. Her own doubts stood tall before her, shaping into silhouettes buried deep in her psyche. It was her past materializing, dark shades of regret whispering all that she had tried to forget, moments forgotten but not forgiven. Will you forsake your children? Twisted versions of herself challenged, faces contorted with grief, pulling at memories that stung like salt on open wounds. It would be so easy, no, she rasped, shaking her head vehemently, rejecting the path that sought to unravel their lives once more. You do not control me. With each punctuated word, Sarah felt power build, the need to fight, to push through the thick darkness. This was not merely a battle for her children, but for herself, to break the chains of guilt that had bound her for so long. If sensing her resolve, the shadows surged forward, an overwhelming tide pushing against every step. Look at what you've created, they screeched, and in that moment, a vision pulsed before her, their once innocent laughter turning into cries of despair, their small bodies drifting in darkness, shackled by the very fears she faced. No, you won't take them, Sarah cried, voice breaking, but inside burning with an ember of defiance. The shadows recoiled at her rage, twisting their forms away, and deep within, beneath layers of horror, she felt a sliver of clarity to face the monsters. She had to face her own demons. Now, she shouted, determination erupting. She grasped Mia and Liam's hands tighter, bringing them within her range of vision, fighting back against the devouring darkness. We can do this together. And suddenly, the light flickered bright again, a burst of pure clarity cutting through the bleak fog. Together, they echoed as one, the three of them drawing strength from a bond that transcended fear itself. The shadows hissed in anger, thrashing as the trio rallied around that shimmer, pushing against the tide as a united front. Let go of us, Sarah shouted, tapping into all the strength she could muster. You can't take what you never owned. Together, they ran, hearts pounding in sync with the thundering pulse of the light that beckoned. The darkness drew back, recoiling against the brightness, and as they surged forward, they felt the tug of gravity loosening its grip, a release, a sense of freedom that rushed toward them like an ocean wave finally breaking. And just when Sarah felt hope bloom within her, the air thickened again, shadows swirling to re-establish their hold. Sarah, what will you sacrifice? The voices lingered, chilling her to the bone. In that half-glimpsed moment, her answer emerged from the deep-rooted types of love she had. Buried her perpetual guilt for her choices, the shadows of dreams lost each sharp pang like a scythe against her soul. I'll face my past. I will choose my children, she shouted, the fierce declaration igniting the air around them. With a thunderous pulse, the shadows faltered and light broke anew, radiant and fervid. Sarah felt it envelop her and her children, making them whole again. They pushed through the haze of shadows, hands linking tighter, hearts as one, propelling forward into the swirling light. In a moment of vibrant clarity, they burst free into a wide expanse, open and alive, tranquility echoing, as if the storm of darkness had finally been vanquished. A warmth radiated around them, suffusing through Sarah's heart. Mommy, we did it. Mia's voice trembled with awe. Yes, we did. Sarah's voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. We are together. Looking around, the expansive horizon stretched before them, the bright dawn painting everything a hopeful hue. It felt as though they had escaped from the very brink of despair. Yet the story remained within them, a poignant reminder of what friendship and love could conquer. As they turned back, the shadows lay behind a dark shroud, shunned to the corners of reality, banished from their lives. Sarah clasped her children's hands tightly, whispering, "We will carry this light forward." Together, walking ahead, they moved toward the promise of home, an unyielding embrace, a bond steeled against the darkness, ready to face the unknown with love that had reclaimed their spirit. In this new day, they rediscovered themselves not merely survivors, but warriors woven together in the fabric of hope, ready to deliver the message forward. Bravery isn't just about conquering fears. It's about facing them to emerge stronger, with every crack forming the mosaic of their lives that now blossomed beautifully in the morning light. And remember, folks, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and make sure you don't miss the next gripping tale. Tell me in the comments what you think of this shocking conclusion and your theories. And if you know any friends who love storytelling, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic ending. Your support makes all the difference.